Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Wings channel. Going to take a look at the astrological weather report for March 17th through the 23rd this week. And it's a week about the sun, really, not only changing signs and going into Aries at the equinox, the beginning of the zodiac cycle, but also is going to be doing its annual conjunction to Neptune right at the 30th degree of Pisces, and also conjunct Venus retrograde, the middle of the Venus retrograde cycle, with both of them sextiling Pluto. So that's what I'm going to look at this week. Just a little info first. And if you don't like to hear the info at the beginning, please, hit fast forward now or mute it. You don't have to sit here and listen to it, but a lot of people do ask for the information right at the beginning. So I know different strokes for different folks, but real quick, the Astrological Winds channel is a free video blog that I do on YouTube every week. If you have a YouTube account, please become a follower and turn on your notifications. Please send the link on to somebody else when you're done. This is a free service I've been doing for so many years, and I really would appreciate that. Also, if you don't want to be married to the YouTube and just want to hear an audio, it's still out there on podcasts like it was long before a YouTube channel. Just look it up, Astrological Winds channel on your favorite podcast. It's also available on Instagram. Astrological Winds channel has its own page. If you become a follower there, I always post it in the newsreel, so you'll find it every Monday there. And then it's also available on www.astrologicalwinds.com, which is my website. I have a part where all the blogs from the past few months are there. You can go back and refer to any one of them. So you can always find it there. And that's where you can find the list of my professional services too. Been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. So I'd love to do your chart or work with your group or something. So please refer to the menu there, and I'll get a little bit more into detail at the end of the blog. But there's that basic contact info, and there's my email, matthue823@gmail.com. Now, turn off the mute. Okay. So anyway, like I said, this is a day where a week really about the sun. But one of the things I want to remind you guys is this week, and I did do a little diagram here. You show you got a lot of stuff going on right where Pisces and Aries are meeting each other. See? Right here. And we have the sun and Neptune down there, and Mercury and Venus. So what I want to remind you guys is that Mercury and Venus are both retrograde now in Aries, and they're going to be conjunct all week. Okay. So like they're traveling together all week. So like I've been saying the last couple weeks, this is going to be a very difficult week for relationships, right? 2/3 of what we normally do, which is Venus and Mercury every day, are moving backwards right now, and both in Aries. And when it's a time where we can get very, very subjective, very, very lost in our own world, then that can make communications very, very difficult, and extra difficult when it's Mercury retrograde. So one of the things to look at is, whether there's a lot of energy of anger and irritation and aggression inside yourself that's coming out in words, and that's what's shutting down a lot of the communications, or just coming out in impulsive decisions and actions, and that's what's messing up a lot of our normal things that Mercury controls: our movements, our scheduling, our planning, the way we're doing things. So yeah, this is going to be a very difficult week for relationships, for all the normal stuff. And it's going to be ourselves messing ourselves up with that Aries energy. It's too subjective, it's too self-driven, and it's too impulsive. And that will be the root of a lot of the problems of the Mercury and Venus retrograde that's going on. So I just want to remind everyone that is actually a really potent thing going on this week, and it's just going to go on all this week, and it's going to continue to go on next week too. But now getting into the week and the sun's journey this week, and you can see Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday is when the sun really is active. And it starts on Wednesday when it does its annual conjunction to Neptune in the critical 30th degree of Pisces. So both Neptune and the sun have reached the end of Pisces, right? And remember now, Neptune was much more slow moving or much slower moving than the sun. So it won't go into Aries until the end of the month. But the sun is going to go into Aries the very next day. But like here they are on this very critical point, and it really talks, Neptune is a transformational, transpersonal planet. It's operating on a very subtle level on the whole collective unconscious, all of us together. It's all about ideals. It's all about values. It's about, our morals, those kind of things, belief systems. So when it's changing signs, there's a big shift going on in the collective unconscious about those things, about ideals, about beliefs, about the things that we want to, how we want to push those things. And so there's been a lot of dichotomy over the last 15 years while Neptune's in Pisces over belief systems. We've seen this played out socially, right? We've seen it played out politically. We've seen it played out throughout the world where there seems to be this conflicting at the Neptune going into, going through Pisces near the end of the age of Pisces, making its transition into the age of Aquarius. So really showing us how hell-bent we can get with our belief systems, that it creates a dichotomy between two large groups within society that seemingly cannot agree on anything anymore. That is not only United States politically, but it's all over the world. There's so many ways that this Piscean age was reflected in these last 15 years of Neptune going through the sign that it has the most affinity to. Pisces, idealism, religion, belief, spirituality, inspiration, imagination, all those things Pisces and Neptune share, but the two fish swimming away don't realize they're unified. And so like just trying to pull apart things. And here we go now with Neptune going into Aries. It's a big shift because now it gets more singular. Even it gets more hell-bent on having its way. It gets more aggressive about pushing the belief systems, about pushing the morals, about pushing your ideals onto everybody else. So this can be a very dangerous time coming up for the collective right now. Neptune traditionally, if you look at the mythology of Neptune, it's a troublemaker. That god was a troublemaker. He created a lot of war and dissension. Okay? And so, like, when we get too subjective with our belief systems, that's what we do too. And it's going on all over the world. And yet, when you talk to the individual, it seems like every individual wants peace and security in their life, not only for themselves, but for their loved ones and their country. And yet, here we are at the very opposite end of that spectrum with the way we are handling our beliefs. And now we're going into this very dangerous time collectively. Here in the United States, it feels like a civil war could break out, right? And, we see these other wars going on in the world that seem to just be getting more and more entrenched in what they believe in and not willing to come together and both agree that they want peace and they want security for them and their loved ones and their nation, So, very basic needs that we're all asking for. So what about on the individual level of the sun conjunct Neptune? What is that normally for us? That is about being very sensitive to our environment, to our surroundings, and that includes other people. We can really feel where other people are at, and it can bring out great acts of compassion, therefore, where we're really motivated to actually try to help other people out in a very honest way. We want to give unconditional love to others. We don't want to see people suffering, right? But now there's a lot of emotional intuition with this energy too. We can really feel, how people are feeling, but the thing is that can also be what very overwhelming, and it can also sometimes, because we're feeling so much about Neptune, is feeling things intuitively, it's very difficult to get those emotions into a linear concept that we can explain to other people on an intellectual or logical level. So many times the communications are not very strong, which will play right into the Mercury retrograde, right? Where it will be very difficult to communicate with words what we're actually sensing, right? But this does put people in a receptive mood. It does put them in a place where they are, want to help others out and have some higher ideal. But the downside of that is seeing how the ideals that we have meet so much resistance, either from others, the retrogrades again, or just from the world itself, that our ideals, our mystical, our spiritual, our religious ideals are very high, but they're not. But it can be very disheartening and disappointing when we see how little we are able to act within those ideals or the world around us. So it can really let us down. It can be emotionally exhausting, right? It can be psychologically exhausting. And what does that lead to with Sun Neptune? How can I escape? How can I escape this harsh reality where my values and ideals are just being battered and I can't even really explain them very well? And yet I know they're so true to me, and I do want to help. I want to help other people and I want to help the world. So what does it lead to? It leads to escapism. We have to be really careful about falling into whatever our addictions are, whatever our escape tendencies are with Sun Neptune. The best way to use this energy actually is to escape, but to go to a place where you can be very meditative and contemplative and get a break from the harder part of reality. So, like some sacred space that you have somewhere out in nature, somewhere maybe in some group of other mystical or people who have the same beliefs as you, where you can be quiet and just kind of settle in. Now, one of the other things to remember, because the sun is involved, the sun is our bodies physically too. When Neptune gets involved, our immune systems may not be at full strength. They can be compromised. And part of that can be the emotional confusion and loss we can feel, can filter down into the body, bring down some of our sensitivity, or bring up some of our sensitivities. So those of us with allergies, those of us with drug sensitivities, those of us with weak immune systems who catch a lot of illnesses and diseases, this is a time to fortify that stuff and be careful, because we are, we're receptive to that too. Conjunction, remember a conjunction, and I mean, we put the judgment on different things, but remember a conjunction always brings in like both sides of the energy, you guys. It's going to bring in, both positive and negative things. And so so there's always a yin yang kind of aspect going on there. Then Thursday is the equinox, spring in the North Hemisphere, where the zodiac was developed, and fall or in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's when the sun goes into Aries, and that's right at the beginning of the zodiac cycle, right? The first cardinal sign, the active sign of fire, of taking action. And what's it all about? It's about getting a foothold. It's just survive, right? So when the sun goes into Aries, it's very energizing to us, especially physically. It can lift our spirits up. It can get us like, hey, full speed ahead, but that also can get us very impatient with others. It's a very, very subjective, egotistical sign. Right. And so it's a great time to work alone if you can. Work on your own projects, and especially ones that you can get physical with. It's going to be very difficult for other people to keep up with us because our self-interest is much higher and we're much more driven and motivated than they are about our own projects. And we're all going to be feeling that way. So, once again, playing into that retrograde energy too of being more driven, more self isolated, but therefore not being able to communicate or have as good relationships, right? We're really wrapped up in ourselves this week and this month, so we don't relate to others well. We don't hear them well. We don't even pay attention to them. We could be like looking at them and it's going right over our head or through our head or whatever you want to call it, but we just don't do that stuff well. And if we feel like anyone is blocking us from where we're subjectively trying to charge ahead to, those are the people we're going to get very impatient with, and we will actually fight them off in some way. We can get very aggressive with our energy. But Aries, the sun in Aries wants to be a groundbreaker. This is a time where the individual really wants to some way, push forward, be a groundbreaker. Thing is, once again, we're being very impulsive when we're doing that. So we have to be very careful because that can be, these impulsive decisions, especially Mercury retrograde again, can be the very thing that drives off other people. So we need to slow down if we can. Try to listen to others if we can, which can be very, very difficult. Aries energy is very temperamental, right? It's very quick to get angry, but it's also very quick to forgive. It's very interesting. It stays in the present very, very well. But, Aries can get very impulsive with those actions and words and do and say things that you regret very, very quickly. So you got to try to slow it down. That's the key to Aries, is to slow the energy down, discipline the energy, start to become a little more receptive. You know, our communication with Aries is on the one hand very forthright and honest, but on the other hand very blunt and tactless and insensitive at times. And those words can be very cutting, like a sword, and hurt other people, when we're not being sensitive to what's going on around us. So, but very competitive energy. There's a lot of zest. It's great for like competitive things as long as you don't take it too far and then it becomes angry in a battle. But Aries is always looking for some new adventure. What's over the horizon? Is the grass greener on the other side? Is the gold at the end of the rainbow? That's that Aries energy, and it's very self-driven. It's glory seeking, right? Self-glory seeking, and it gets very bored very quickly with mundane, ordinary energy. Stuff that's not what's considered a new adventure, something that's not a new challenge, right? But the key to that, to not pushing it so far that we're damaging ourselves and our relationships, because Aries can really damage relationships by being that way, by being so insensitive. You may find out that when you come back from your adventure, all your loved ones have checked out of the hotel while you were gone. Like seriously, okay? Yes, you can get that self-driven. So Aries needs to understand that adventure can be found in everyday life, and that the protective energy that it has can be put towards its loved ones to get them the things that they need and to be secure with, right? One of those things we all basically want, right? So that's the way to hone that Aries energy in, is to make that the adventure. How am I going to find it in everyday life and protect my loved ones in everyday life and get what I need to survive too, without being overly aggressive, without putting everybody else off, So it's an adjustment of attitude for sure, So that's what's going on then. And then Friday through Sunday, Saturday will be the exact Sun conjunct Venus retrograde. And then on Friday, Venus will sextile Pluto. And then Sunday, the Sun will sextile Pluto. So Venus retrograde sextile Pluto on Friday is just a really great day or opportunity to get in very deeply in a relationship with someone, to go to the emotional well with someone. This favors our focus on one individual rather than lots of individuals, where we can have some really profound emotional experiences together that can be transformative to both people in the relationship. So so this is we really value our deepest relationships with this kind of energy, and we can be with the Aries there, we can be very protective of our loved ones too. But this is really great for relationships that are starting to hit that deep romantic sexual blend. It can really propel transformative energy through that and really change people. And it's an opportunity really to see too how our emotions affect relationships, and how others too, how how the other people's emotions can affect us, and how we affect each other. We really feel our way through life on a day when Venus is sextile Pluto. We're feeling things out, and we have opportunities to create some very deep, profound relationships and experiences with others that can be very transformative to your future. Now remember, with Venus being retrograde, this could be people from the past coming back in again. It really can be. And then the other thing is, Venus Pluto can stir up deep levels of creativity too, like profound transformative creativity. So if not in a relationship, you can, artistically output some very intense art today, or expose yourself to art that's transformative to you emotionally in your being. And then Saturday is the exact conjunction of the Sun now, which will be in Aries at that point, to Venus retrograde. So that's the middle of the retrograde Venus cycle. And that's where, if you're having trouble with certain relationships, they can really reach what would be like a low point or a high point of the low points, if you know what I mean. So that, it can be a little bit dark, and it can be a time where we can really retreat in. But, what we really want to do with Sun conjunct Venus is really think about how we want to express ourselves in relationships, because now we can really, with the retrograde and with the Pluto there, we really can get a good glimpse of how we affect other people with the way we approach things, right? And we approach people, and we can really see how other people do the same thing to us and other people. So this can help us take a step back, especially with all this retrograde energy, and take a look at that and be like, is that the way I really want to affect people? Or is that the way I want to react to people who are affecting me this way? So we can use this energy to be very contemplative like that, and then start to think, well, how, if now I know how I'm affecting certain people, is there adjustments I want to make that, where I can start to fine tune that and attract the kind of people I want in towards me? What kind of attention do I want? Is another way of using this energy. And therefore, what kind of energy, therefore, do I put out to attract those people? But, the Sun Venus can make us very charming and receptive in general. We may be a little bit quieter in the retrograde, but we do want to make connections with others. And many times, new connections, even if they're new connections with older people, this is a seeding time for new relationships. It's a time where we normally do want to go out and socialize. We do want to go out and have fun, have some entertainment. And that's the ground where we make a lot of those connections, right? Now, once again, the Venus in Aries is showing we may be being too subjective, aggressive, or non receptive and are failing at that. And that's once again something, okay, that's the effect we should be looking at. Then, am I being a little bit too much like this? And that's what's making me, um, ineffective in relating to others, so it's a good chance to really look at it from an inner lens. Going out is a good way to say it. Now, this is also a time too that we have to be careful with our money. Like I said, I've said it multiple times now. When Venus is going into retrograde, I really don't think the economy is going to be doing good for a while. And we're seeing a lot of the markets crash even in the past week, which I said a week or two ago. When Venus goes retrograde, watch those markets. It might be time to get out. But yeah, this is a time where we should look at the way we spend money too. And are we spending money that we don't really might have right now on things that are luxury items, things that are just for our indulgences, extravagance, things like that, because that might not be the best way to be spending money right now. We really should be spending it on things that we need, right? So once again, we can get a little bit egotistical and impulsive even about the way we spend money. And then, the other thing too, we talk about the Aries energy and egotistical and impulsive too, and the Sun Venus. Be careful of adopting like a privileged attitude too. Like you think that you're holier or better than other people, because that can definitely happen with the Aries energy, with Venus and Mercury, and that can really drive people off and really shut down communications. Like, think that, you're just so much better than everyone else. And that is just like very self centered energy that ultimately is going to drive people away, especially with the retrograde. So, another thing that people like to do with Sun Venus, and, it's something to consider this energy, especially in your own space, is to beautify your surroundings. We can really tap into a lot of self creativity and express that self out in our own surroundings. So, so that's something that, you can use some of your inner creative energy to, I'll put it in the world that way too during this. So, and then the last part of this makeup is the sun hitting the sextile to Pluto on Sunday, just like Venus did on Friday. And so basically, they're doing this together, obviously. But when Sun Pluto gets together, it's about reforming situations that maybe you've been putting up with a little bit too long. And then in relation to Venus, it's probably relationships again. So this is a great opportunity to reform the conditions of certain relationships or anything else that needs reformation, any kind of situation, any kind of thing, even, that needs some kind of change to it to bring it back up to speed. So but in relationships, it's just a great time to clear the air, to get a really good basic understanding of where things are at, and really build from there something that's very, very solid. It's also a good time where you can work with large groups of people. The Sun Pluto thing, for once again, projects that are reforming things, projects that are trying to move things forward that have been stuck, certain things dying out and other things coming in to replace them. As long as we can align our intentions with the group, this is a time where we can really do that. But also great energy because it's very focused energy. So it's a great time to do any kind of research that you want to do to get to the bottom of anything that you're looking into. But once again, when you want to think about what's really going on here, it's a great time to look at how your mind and other people's minds are functioning, what's driving them, and that could help explain once again, a lot of the communication and relationship issues of the retrograde energy. But also a time, the sun, once again, it is our body. Like I mentioned with the sun Neptune, being careful. With the sun Pluto, this is a good time to actually introduce new healing techniques to keep your body strong. Okay. So look, so anything that you come into there, but like it's a great time for psychological and physical transformation to take steps to do that. And once again, especially in relation to relationships. So, okay, a deep week, you guys, on the sense of like, just where relationships are going to be at, and with these two inner planets moving backwards, where normal life is. It's crazy, right? It's like everything seems to be upside down these days. No matter what side of the spectrum you're on with your beliefs, politically, spiritually, culturally, everything seems to be like, whoa, right? And we've got that going on reflected in the astrology, when 2/3 of the things that we normally expect to, work out are not working out. It can be like, whoa. And remember, Mars was still in a weak sign and coming out of its retrograde shadow too. So in a way, we've got everything we do every day, which is covered by the three inner planets, not in balance right now. Does it seem like the world is like that? Yeah, I thought so. All right, you guys, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I see next week we are going to get the new moon solar eclipse at 9 degrees Aries. So next weekend, so I'll be talking about that a lot. And Mercury will retrograde back into Pisces and hit Neptune right before it goes into Aries. And then we'll also have Venus going back into Pisces next week too, retrograding back into a sign it likes to be in, right? And then the sun is going to make its inferior conjunction to Mercury retrograde. So there's going to be a lot going on next week. I tell you guys, the end of this month, like the Ides of March, it's here. It's with us, right? But anyway, that's what I'll be talking about next week. So this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free service, and I really need you right now to pass it on to somebody else, please. That's the only way I really get the blog to grow, is just by word of mouth, right? I really want those deep relationships, right? So that's the best way to get them. So anyway, please pass it along. And remember, if you have a YouTube account, you like what you see, I really want you to be a follower, and you can't forget to turn on your notifications or you won't know when the blog comes up. Also, remember, it's on podcast. Just look up Astrological Winds channel. It's put out by Spotify. They put it out over like 20 different ones. Find one. You can get it that way. It has its own Instagram page, Astrological Winds channel. So if you follow that, it'll come up in your newsreel, and the link, and also sometimes I make additional comment just on Instagram during the week. Also, always available on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. There's at least 3 months of the blogs there if you need to refer back to the monthly or the annual or another one. That also has a calendar page of the Earth holidays that are going on each week. That's fun to check out. And it has all my professional services. I've been doing professional readings for over 20 years. I was trained for 7 years to do that. I would love to do your chart or someone you know. There's all kinds of different charts available: children's, relationship, fixed stars, elections, horary, all kinds of stuff. So check out the website. The prices are there too. I can work with you on payments if that's a little too much for you to handle in one fell swoop. And if you'd like to give a donation to the blog too, it does cost me a little money to put it out. My Venmo is at Matthew with 2 T's hyphen Lawton, Lauten. Cash App is $ Matthew Lawton. No amounts too small, even $5. If you have a group that's looking for a public speaker, a lecture, a class, a workshop, mini readings for an event, once again, something I can do, can even be done on Zoom these days. So check the website out for that. Also, I'm starting a beginner's astrology class that's going to meet live. So if you're interested in that, please contact me. Let me know. I'll probably start that up after all the retrograde energy goes away. See, I even plan stuff like that, making sure the astrology aligns best, right? And also, if you're a professional, I work on daily or weekly or monthly with professional people, or if you're just going through a really hard time in your life right now and you need that kind of input, those are services that I do also. So any of that stuff, please contact me on my website or matthueh23@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for passing that link along. I'll see y'all next week when we're going to have another big week of changes. Strap in, folks. It's quite a ride these days.